Hello, this is D, and I'm back with another video. And today we have a lot of news regarding the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, in the last 24 hours, so much information has come out. So today's going to be kind of a long video. We're going to get into a lot of details. We're going to get into a lot of information from the leakers. We're going to get a lot of information from what Digital Foundry has found out and their analysis of the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, yesterday, they actually released a video on the PlayStation 5 Pro. And one of the interesting things that they said is the performance that they feel that the PlayStation 5 Pro GPU will have. Now, I've been having a big debate online. We'll get into some of my tweets over on X later on, but I was telling people that this is going to pretty much perform like a 4070. That it's basically a 7700 XT that is inside the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, I'm gonna have to modify that a little bit because I shot a little bit too low. Now, the 7800 XT I thought was too far off for the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, according to Digital Foundry, and I'll put the clip up here so you guys can see it, they say that it is closest to a 7800 XT downclocked. I actually have video from a content creator that tested the 7800 XT downclocked, basically the PlayStation 5 Pro specifications, to see the type of performance that we would get on PC. Now, when we look at the charts, the 7700 XT is pretty close to a 4070. Now, it depends on the game. It's around 8 to 10% difference. Some games, well, I should say the odd games, they actually perform the same, but the 4070 is a little bit ahead of the 7700 XT. If we have to put it in frames, it's like 8 frames ahead of that GPU, which is really good for a console. Now, we didn't know if the leak specifications were true, but with the demonstration, or I should say the event that Sony presented, we found out that they were indeed true. So the PlayStation 5 Pro is actually capable of delivering 33.5 teraflops of performance. Now, this is a huge uplift in performance over the regular PlayStation 5. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. This is on Digital Foundry's site. It's up on the screen. You can see it for yourself. I'm also going to play right now the clip where Digital Foundry talks about what performance we can expect out of the PlayStation 5 Pro GPU.
We've got a couple actually from the same guy, but we'll or girl, who knows. This one's from Cookie Butter, actually, not Cookie Cutter. Sony claim a 45% increase in graphical power compared to PS5, with a major improvement of ray tracing and upscaling too. Which PC GPU do you believe will most closely match the new PS5 Pro GPU? Now, this is really tricky, right? Because obviously there was a great deal of commonality between the PlayStation 5 GPU and the RX 6700 10 gig. Same level of compute units, broadly similar processing power, different memory bandwidth, but when we tested it in like-for-like scenarios, very, very close. There are two AMD GPUs that we've kind of had in mind for this, and they would be the AMD RX Radeon 6800, not the 6800 XT. That should deliver your 45% GPU improvement over base PS5, and it also has 60 compute units, I believe. And the alternative to that from the RDNA 3 lineup would be the RX 7800 XT, but you would need to downclock that significantly to about like 2.15 gigahertz, I think, to get a similar level of compute. The problem with talking about all of this is that neither of those GPUs will presumably have the RDNA 4 based RT features that we think are in the PlayStation 5 Pro, so that probably wouldn't be a good match. Similarly, there's not going to be any machine learning silicon in there. It's just extensions. It's just running ML extensions on the CUs, right, on RDNA 3. Is that correct, Alex? I think that's the case.
Yeah, that's it. That's at least for the consumer product. Yeah.
So yes, there's nothing to run Pisser on, or even an equivalent. I am intrigued as to what the footprint of XeSS DP4A is, but it's not the same thing. So yeah,
So there you have it. Digital Foundry themselves are saying that this is beyond a 7800 XT because it has RDNA 4 elements on it. The ray tracing, the machine learning, all of this is new hardware that is not available on AMD yet. Now this will be on their upcoming RDNA 4 cards. It is rumored to be coming out around the holiday season or early 2025, and it will be available there. But right now it is not available on PC, and the PlayStation 5 Pro is gonna come out and be the first RDNA 4, I should say hybrid card at least, to have ray tracing that has new dedicated hardware and hardware for machine learning. This is a big deal. A lot of people online are saying, oh, you're not gonna get 30 to 60 FPS, but we've seen demonstrations from Sony from that event where the games were indeed running 30 on the regular PlayStation 5 and then ran at 60 FPS on the PlayStation 5 Pro. CNET did some testing. They actually said that there will be some support for games to go up to 120 FPS. Now this will be on a game per game basis, but basically they're saying that any game that runs at 30 FPS on the regular PlayStation 5 will be running at 60 FPS on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now I'm not quite sure what's going to happen for the very few titles that are CPU bound, and it's going to be very interesting to see what they do about that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, before I get into everything, I also want to discuss briefly people talking about the CPU bottleneck that is in the PlayStation 5 Pro. Yes, the CPU is still the same CPU that they use in the PlayStation 5, which is basically the same CPU that they use in the Xbox consoles. Now, I will say that I am disappointed that they didn't upgrade the CPU, but I understand why they didn't do it, because it would pretty much push us to the next generation. As well, the cost would be a lot more for that CPU. Now, people are under the misconception because of that CPU that you're going to get poor performance on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, I want to say this clearly so people understand this, because there's a lot of console guys that just don't understand how PC architecture works. Now, what happens on PC when you get a CPU bottleneck? You're usually bottlenecked at 1080p. This console is going to be targeting 4K. So even if they do an upscale from 1440p to 4K, you're not at 1080p, you don't have the same bottleneck. So the CPU is going to be less of an issue the higher in resolution that you go. That's just the way that it works. So when they say the CPU is going to bottleneck all the games and they're just going to continue to run at 30 FPS, that is incorrect. It's not going to bottleneck the games as much at a higher resolution. And the PlayStation 5 Pro is designed to run at a higher resolution. So I think a lot of people are going to be shocked at the performance that they see from the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, before I get into the rest of today's stories, like I told you, it's going to be a long video, so make sure you have your popcorn ready. Now, Jeff Keighley over on X gave a list of PlayStation 5 Pro enhanced versions of games. Alan Wake 2, which has fantastic ray tracing. It even has path tracing. Now, I'm not going to say that the console is going to have path tracing because there's no evidence that the console will have path tracing. But of course, it's going to support the ray tracing that is in Alan Wake 2. So you're going to get a significant upgrade in performance and image quality on Alan Wake 2 on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Assassin's Creed Shadows, that will launch with a PS5 Pro enhancement. So we can expect 60 FPS at 4K resolution. Demon's Souls, Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, Dragon's Dogma 2 is going to be very interesting because Dragon's Dogma 2, I do know, is CPU bound. So I want to see the performance uptick that we get from Dragon's Dogma 2. That's going to be very telling for games that are CPU bound on the PlayStation 5 going forward and how they will run on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, of course, I'm waiting for this one because I just can't play it on the consoles right now. The frame rate is just all over the place. Gran Turismo 7, we saw that it actually has an 8K mode. That is incredible. It's also going to be running 4K 60 with ray tracing on the track. Hogwarts Legacy, they actually showed at the event and the ray tracing was improved. Horizon Forbidden West, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Ratchet & Clank, The Crew Motorfest, The First Descendant, and The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. And of course, we know that the list is just going to continue to get bigger and bigger. So a lot of people saying, oh, well, what's the PlayStation 5 Pro going to launch with? It's going to launch with a lot of games that are going to be enhanced, that are going to have better ray tracing, that are going to have better performance, going to have higher resolution, going to be running at 60 FPS. I don't know what to say to you guys. I think that's a good thing. Now, I know a lot of people are so divided over the price. I'm happy with the price. I think $700 is a good price. Now, I understand some gamers don't really want to pay that, and I gotta be honest, you're not forced to get the PlayStation 5 Pro. They're still gonna make games for the PlayStation 5, so I don't understand all of the outrage. If you're getting games going from 30 to 60 FPS with better ray tracing, higher resolution on the PlayStation 5 Pro, I think it's worth it. Now, Xbox is releasing a new console that is $100 less than the PlayStation 5 Pro. So do you still feel the same about the PlayStation 5 Pro, seeing the price of the new Xbox Series X, a 2TB edition? We'll get into that a little bit later on. But I gotta say, overall, I'm impressed with what I saw from the PlayStation 5 Pro. I think it's gonna be a fantastic machine. I think the fact that it's capable of 33 teraflops is tremendous. The fact that it's going to be RDNA 3, RDNA 4. So it's going to have RDNA 4 elements on it. It's going to be a hybrid. I don't think it's going to be a straight RDNA 4 GPU because it's custom, but it's going to have a lot of the stuff that is on RDNA 4, such as the machine learning, such as the ray tracing, and I'm going to assume the improvements to some of the CUs. So some of the calculations, some of the way that they do things is probably going to work a lot better on the PlayStation 5 Pro GPU, seeing how it has some features of RDNA 4. So you guys better get your popcorn out for this one because this is going to be a pretty long video. I think it's going to run maybe 20 to 25 minutes. So we're going to go through some of this thread. Of course, we're going to cover the stuff that I talked about with the PlayStation 5 Pro, what we can expect on it, the new information about the RDNA 4 technology that is inside the PlayStation 5 Pro. We're going to get into all of that, but first let's just go through the comment section here. So I wrote, those complaining about the PlayStation 5 Pro price, an RTX 4070, which is about the same performance as a PlayStation 5 Pro GPU, costs $650 to $750 alone. The new Xbox Series X 2TB console costs $600. Give me a break. Y'all are reaching. And I really do feel it's a reach. People aren't going to complain about this $600 Xbox Series X 2TB console, and they're going to complain about the PlayStation 5 Pro. I better go through all of your posts and see that you complain about this Xbox Series X 2TB console as well. Because for $600, for $100 more, I can get a PlayStation 5 Pro that is a substantial upgrade over the Xbox Series X console. So that doesn't make any sense. So we get into the comment section here, and you know, a lot of people got into their feelings. And it's crazy. Like the PC guys came out the woodwork, and I'm a PC guy primarily. I play most of my games on PC, and then I play on the Xbox and the PlayStation. But I gotta be honest, price to performance, you are not going to beat the price of the PlayStation 5 Pro. Guys were trying to put everything together. Oh, I can get it for this price. Oh, I can get it for $950, but it does more. It's more expensive than the PlayStation 5 Pro. Did you add a controller to that? You know, it's ridiculous. So we're just going to go through some of them because I got to be honest with you guys, as of the time that I'm doing this video, it's at 166,000 views. So, you know, people are going ham in the comments here. So I wrote here, I just found out the PlayStation 5 Pro comes with a 2TB storage. Yeah, I didn't even know in the beginning that it had a 2TB storage. So that even made the deal sweeter for myself. And this is Z Black Rider. He's been day one over here, but he says it's nowhere near a 4070. And I told him a 4070 gets maybe 10 FPS on average better, but they are close. Some games of performance are the same. With PSSR, it makes it perform much better than a regular 7700 XT. It's close enough for a match. A 1-to-1 would probably be a 7800 XT. It is a direct 4070 competitor. The 7700 XT alone costs 400 to 500 USD. So if you want to use that argument, because I did say it performs like a 4070, but it's a 7700 XT, and you want to see the price of that on PC, that is $500 alone for that GPU, much less the rest of the stuff that you would need to build a PC. So it's not a comparison. And then you had other people saying, no, it's not going to compare to a 4070, a 7700 XT. The performance is way off. People were just really saying that through the comment section, and I kind of got annoyed. So, you know, I probably didn't write the nicest thing here, but I did post some benchmarks. Now, another person complained, oh, look at the benchmarks. You don't know what you're talking about. You're cherry picking these benchmarks. Now, these benchmarks are from Tech Power Up, which, if you don't know, is Hardware Unbox's site. So these are very accurate numbers. They're not cherry picked. I'm showing some benchmarks where you can see the relative performance of the 7700 XT compared to other GPUs. As you can see here in their summary of benchmarks, I guess it was, they maybe did like 15 games or something like that, and the relative performance to other GPUs on the stack. And I guess this is the average that they have. I don't know if it's from all of the GPUs, but at the time it must have been all of the tests that they've done. This is where the 7700 XT on average lands compared to other cards. As you can see here, it's above the 3070 Ti, and the 4070 is ahead of it. Now on this chart, the 4070 is about 13% more powerful than the 7700 XT. Now keep in mind that this 7700 XT that's in the PlayStation 5 Pro has been modified. There's changes to it. But with that aside, you can see that it's very close to a 4070. Now, when we go to like certain games, we're gonna go at 1080p here. You can see that the 7700 XT compared to the 4070 is just a little bit behind. It's just 6 frames behind. We'll go to 1440p. You see it drops a little bit more here, but it's like around, I don't know, 5 frames behind. At 1080p in Cyberpunk, it's about 7 frames behind. And there's another chart I'll put up here. At 4K in Cyberpunk, it's just a few frames behind. There are some games where they actually tie or they trade places a little bit. So it kind of does vary. But if on average, I would say you're going to get like maybe 7-8 frames more on a 4070 compared to a 7700 XT. And that's the 7700 XT that we know of today, not the one that's in the PlayStation 5 Pro that is modified, that has much better ray tracing performance. It has hardware on there that's not on the regular 7700 XT. And the thread pretty much was just going through that. And honestly, it's just getting exhausting arguing with these guys. Like everyone's like, I can build a PC for $600. No, you can't. Or someone's saying, oh, I can get this card for $600. Okay, what about the rest of the PC? Let's just kind of clarify this. PC guys, you cannot get the same performance with a PC counterpart for the same price that you're going to get a console or the PlayStation 5 Pro. It's just not possible. The only time that it happens is at the end of the generation, when the cycle is over and the demand is down, and of course, parts are really old at that point and new architecture is out, then of course you can get it cheaper at the console at that time, but that's the end of the cycle. When a new console comes out, the PC counterpart is not matching the performance of that console for the same price. Now on PC, granted, you can do upgrades and upgrades and upgrades as much as you like, and you can get really good performance. But to get the same performance, if you're starting from point A, you cannot get it at the $700 price point that you can for the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, I will say I do see a lot of outrage out there over the price. A lot of people are upset about the price. They're saying, screw it. And I think it's not for you, this console. I think this console has a specific market. And for that specific market, this console is delicious. And when I say delicious, it's so appealing. I can run my games that run at 30 FPS on the regular PlayStation 5 at 4K 60 on the PlayStation 5 Pro. I can run it with ray tracing, with all of these features turned on with higher settings at 60 FPS on the PlayStation 5 Pro. That is appealing to me. I don't have to wait a year. I don't have to wait 6 months to play a certain title on PC. I can play it directly on my PlayStation 5 Pro because I can get it at 60 FPS. Now, will every single game play at 60 FPS? I can't definitely say that. Certain games are going to remain CPU bound, and we have to see what Sony's going to do in those situations. Will they just leave an uncapped unlocked frame rate where you're getting like 45 unlocked? That remains to be seen. But there are only a few games this generation that are truly CPU bottlenecked. So a lot of people make light of this and try to make it a big issue when there's very few games that actually suffer from a CPU bottleneck. Yes, Unreal Engine 5 games are demanding, but when you have a better GPU, they're still gonna perform better than the PlayStation 5 regular. These are just the facts. So you guys can go through the X thread here and you guys can leave some comments down there. But yeah, it was just crazy. Everybody's losing their mind over the PlayStation 5 Pro. And, you know, I understand some people just think $700 is too much for a console. Me personally, what I think you're getting in that console, I think it's worth it. Now, with the outrage being what it is, perhaps Sony offers a free disk drive upgrade. So you can get a free disk drive and a free stand. Maybe if they throw that in, people would probably calm down. So maybe something like that would happen. And if we can get that, then I'm all for it. But I'm also okay with the $700 price point. Now let's go over to wcctech.com, and like usual, I'll leave a link in the description down below so you guys can check it out for yourself. Now, they are reporting that AMD's RDNA 4 GPUs to feature enhanced ray tracing architecture with double ray tracing intersect engine coming to Radeon RX 8000 and Sony PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, this was way back, and I really didn't acknowledge it too much, but now that we're seeing the improvements that we're getting from ray tracing on the PlayStation 5 Pro, it makes sense that this would be on the RDNA 4 architecture. And they reported on this back in July. And here we are in September after the PlayStation 5 Pro reveal, and we're finding out that this is going to be the case. Now, this came from Kepler. And if you know, Kepler is a well-known leaker. His accuracy speaks for itself. And he goes on to say that some of the new ray tracing features coming with GFX 12 RDNA 4, most if not all of those should be in the PlayStation 5 Pro too. And he has written here double ray tracing intersection engine, ray tracing instant node transform, 64B ray tracing node, ray tracing tri-pair optimization, BVH footprint improvements, RT support for OBB and instant node intersection. So you're getting a lot more calculations for the ray tracing. And in Mark Cerny's presentation, he specifically said that ray tracing performance is 2 to 3 times better on the PlayStation 5 Pro. So why would AMD not be using this in their RDNA 4 architecture? It would make perfect sense. This could be why they're getting some of the costs down on the PlayStation 5 Pro, because honestly, for what you're getting, if it performs as what they said today, $700 is a good deal. I don't care if you guys think it's expensive. It is a good deal for what you're getting in the hardware, especially when you try to go out there and build it on PC. You're getting a substantial increase in performance, 67% more compute units on the PlayStation 5 Pro. And they're only asking $100 more over the Xbox Series X refresh, or I should say the 2 terabyte special edition, whatever it is. It's not that much more. And you're going to get a host of improvements. Now, if I were to tell you that every single game that is running on PlayStation 5, apart from, let's say, 3 games, will run at 60 FPS and 4K on the PlayStation 5 Pro, would you then think it's worth the $700? Because I think that's what they're going to be able to deliver here with the PlayStation 5 Pro. And I think this is also a win for AMD, because AMD has been suffering against NVIDIA on the PC market. The rasterization is fantastic. They're at par, if not just a little under what NVIDIA can do with rasterization, but they lose in the features. They lose in ray tracing. They lose in machine learning. And with the improvements that Sony has made on AMD's hardware, with the hardware that they've added for ray tracing, with the hardware that they've added for machine learning, is incredible. And I think this would actually give NVIDIA a run for their money. So I'm just really excited in general. I think this is great for PC as well. I think this is great if you're an AMD fan, because AMD is going to be able to use this in their RDNA 4 architecture, or they're going to use this in their RDNA 4 architecture. And it looks like Sony assisted in these features. So while I was in the thread there, somebody actually sent a link to a video, because a lot of people were really getting on me in the threads there saying, oh, it's nowhere near a 4070. Even after showing them the 7700 XT performance on PC, they're still in denial over there. But it's a very comparable GPU that's going to be in the PlayStation 5 Pro. It's the CPU that's the same, that's just a little bit overclocked. That is an issue for sure. But the GPU is better. And most games, if you know anything about gaming, most games are GPU bound. The PlayStation 5 Pro is going to have a substantial increase in teraflops based on the specifications. It's going to have like 33.5 teraflops. That is a lot compared to the PlayStation 5's 10.23. That is a huge increase in performance right there alone off of the GPU. So I know a lot of people think that I'm some type of pony bot or I'm capping, but I don't cap on this channel. And if we make a mistake, we correct it. We own up to it. But I'm telling you, the GPU that's in the PlayStation 5 Pro is a very good GPU. Now, the link that he sent me to is to Iceberg Tech. Check him out, subscribe to him. He seems like he makes a lot of good stuff, much bigger channel than myself. We're going to kind of just react to some of the stuff that he says here and kind of get to the end, what he thinks the PlayStation 5 Pro is. Now, the reason why I'm going to go through parts of it, because this is like a 5-6 month old video when we just heard about the PlayStation 5 Pro specs. And based on the hardware that was out at the time, which was a 7800 XT, he downclocked it to the PlayStation 5 Pro specs to see what type of performance we would really get out of it and what techniques Sony would use in order to achieve 60 FPS. So he does the test, and if we remember what we were shown today, we saw that Ratchet & Clank was running at 4K 60. We saw that The Last of Us was running at 4K 60. We saw that Spider-Man was running at 4K 60. So if he's able to achieve this here 6 months ago and tells us how Sony will get to that target, and at the end he says what GPU he thinks it's going to be or closest to, then I think you guys will have a better grasp on what to expect out of the PlayStation 5 Pro. So let's just react to this video here. Okay, so let's look at the leaks really quick here. Now you see 45% faster than the PlayStation 5 in raw on optimized rendering performance, 2 to 4 times faster than the PlayStation 5 in ray tracing, has 67 T-flops of FP16 precision, has 300 tops of 8-bit computation. All of this stuff was confirmed. The PSSR, this was all confirmed. This is an old video, and I also covered it on my channel. So the specs were confirmed today. So I just want to point that out. So when we're calculating the performance of the PlayStation 5 Pro, we have its PC counterparts, sort of. And to be honest with you, I think it's going to perform better than its PC counterparts because it has newer hardware on it. But let's just get on with the video.
Originated with Moore's Law is Dead, but has been confirmed and elaborated on by Digital Foundry. It's going to have 60 compute units with 33.5 teraflops of FP32 performance.
Okay, so Digital Foundry confirmed it as well, because I know you guys don't like to keep score. So we've known these specs for quite some time, and we know the performance to expect on the GPU side of things. So what I'm going to do here is, because the video is obviously going to be pretty long, I'm going to try to speed this video up here. Let's go to the settings, speed. We'll go at 1.5. How about that?
Console gamers will get from this new GPU, and for us PC gamers, what kind of performance a PS5 Pro console killer will have to aim for. First though, we need to figure out which Radeon GPU is closest. The original PS5 Oberon GPU was based on RDNA 2, or possibly a hybrid of RDNA 1 and 2, depending on who you ask. 33.5 teraflops is a ridiculous number to expect from an RDNA 1 or 2 GPU. An RX 6800, which is the consumer 60CU card based on RDNA 2 architecture, puts out just over 16 teraflops at about 2.1 GHz. 33.5 teraflops would require a clock speed of 4.3 GHz. Your PS5 Pro's exhaust will be hot enough to melt steel beams. The RX 7800 XT is a much more realistic candidate, as its RDNA 3 architecture with dual-issue FP32 shader units can reach more than 37 teraflops at just over 2.4 GHz. Underclocking this card to 2.2 should be all that's needed to hit the necessary floppage. Underclocking is simply a matter of dragging sliders. I could use the Radeon software to achieve this, but as I'm using MSI Afterburner for counting frames, I'm going to use its clock speed tools as well. Regardless of how I choose to change the clocks, the card takes it as a suggestion rather than an order. Dialing in a clock speed of 2.18 GHz sees it creep as high as 2.3, so after some experimenting, I settled on 2.13, which often sits at the desired 2.18, but still drifts up to 2.2 or higher whenever it feels like it. The new GPU is, of course, not the only thing that makes the console Pro. It has the same 16 gigs of unified memory as the previous version, but VRAM allocation is extended to over 13 gigabytes, and memory bandwidth is increased from 448 gigs a second to 576.
So as you're seeing, we're getting a substantial increase in memory bandwidth, which of course helps when you go up to a higher resolution. It helps with textures. It's just going to help all around for the PlayStation 5 Pro to perform better than the PlayStation 5. Look at the CU count. Like, it's a huge upgrade. I don't understand why people are saying that this is not a big upgrade just because the CPU is the same. On the CPU side, sure, I agree with you. But on the GPU side, this is a huge upgrade.
Processing units capable of 300 tops of AI processing, which might be related to Sony's new proprietary upscaling tech. There's also the CPU, which is probably not going to be an architectural upgrade over the original Zen 2 chip, and will only have an optional 10% clock speed boost to differentiate it from the old version. There's also the part of the leak that says RT performance will see between 2 and 3 times performance uplift over base PS5, potentially up to 4 times in some scenarios. Now, AMD's ray tracing performance is derived from the number of TMUs, which the PS5 Pro will have 67% more of, so that alone accounts for a substantial uplift over PS5. The step up from RDNA 2 to RDNA 3 in terms of ray tracing performance per compute unit isn't something I have data for, but I know it's not much, and it's certainly not going to explain a 3x improvement over the PS5, much less 4x. It's been suggested that this might be a sign the PS5 Pro will have at least some elements of the forthcoming RDNA 4. As those GPUs aren't expected to release until around the same time as the new console, all I can do for now is test with what I have. Well, that's enough chit-chat about teraflops and gigabytes. Let's see some FPS targets, but can drop below that in more demanding situations. In performance mode, that target climbs to 60, while dropping resolution to 1440p, with neither mode apparently using checkerboard rendering or dynamic scaling. The RX 7800 XT at PS5 Pro equivalent clock speeds completes my test scene at full 4K with an average of about 55 FPS, with lows in the mid-40s. This is just short of offering a 4K 60 output that would effectively replace both fidelity and performance modes. And it
So there you have it. He was doing a comparison here, 55.7 on average, and this is just like straight power. Now, you know that the PlayStation 5 Pro is going to have some type of efficiencies there. They're going to have, this extra level to the metal, and that's probably how they got these 60 FPS. And don't forget, they can also use PSSR. So maybe they use PSSR for the ray tracing mode to give you a higher frame rate. So let's just go on with what he's saying here. And please, guys, I'm trying not to look at his whole video here. So we're just going to go through parts of it, and we're just going to go to the end. If you want to watch his video in its entirety, I will link it in the description down below so you can check it out. He obviously put a lot of work into it. I just really want to react to his video here today because it really kind of proves the point of what I'm trying to say here. And a lot of people are saying that, I don't know what I'm talking about. So yeah.
wouldn't take much upscaling to get it to hit the targets. I don't have the time or inclination to test them all. From what I can tell, the PS5 Pro would have enough grunt to make most of them obsolete anyway. The underclocked 7800 XT can drive a full 2160p image at max settings, including ray tracing at an average of 62 FPS with lows of 50. Obviously, there'd be some level of optimization, as console games rarely, if ever, run at close to a PC's maximum settings, so I think Capcom should have no trouble making a rock-solid, zero-compromise mode for RE4 Remake, covering both hair strands and ray tracing, and all at a smooth 4K 60 FPS. Horizon Forbidden West's PC port is brand new, released just a few days before I started benchmarking, and so I wasn't able to find any confirmation of what equivalent quality settings it uses when compared to the PS5 original. To cover my bases then, I repeated my benchmark test as native 4K with 3 quality presets: medium, high, and very high. Assuming the estimated 45% performance uplift from the Pro leak is accurate, then I guess that the console version uses a mix of high and very high, as they come in at averages of 49 and 44 FPS respectively. Medium comes close to 60 but doesn't quite hit it, so I think the most likely scenario is that Sony will apply their new PSSR upscaling to sell this as a 4K 60 experience.
I was looking at the charts there, and I did see that the 7700 XT was on the chart, but he doesn't think it's going to be performing like a 7700 XT, and that's because of the improvements that Sony has made to the AMD hardware. You can see on his own charts there that the 7700 XT was very close to the 4070. But like I said, the improvements that Sony has put on the PlayStation 5 Pro, it's going to outperform its PC counterpart because it just doesn't have the same features. It doesn't have the same ray tracing performance. It doesn't have the same machine learning on it. So you're going to be getting really good performance from the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, my only concern is the CPU bound games. I really want to see what Sony does with these games. And thankfully, there's only a few titles. And if they can get it unlocked to like 45 FPS, I think everybody would pretty much be fine with that because it's like a handful of games. The majority of games, I would say more than 92% of the games on the PlayStation 5 Pro will be running at 4K 60 FPS. And I can't believe I'm going to even say this, but as the tools, the new tools that Sony has, I can't believe I'm saying this, but as the tools come in, you're going to get more performance. As RDNA 4 GPUs come out and developers get more familiar with the hardware, you're going to see the performance shine on it. I think that the PlayStation 5 Pro is priced okay at $700. Now, if the outrage that a lot of gamers are feeling right now over the price causes Sony to bundle in the disc player and the stand, I'm all for that as well. I think probably that would be a better value. For $700, with the disc player and the stand, I don't think anyone would be upset with the price of the PlayStation 5 Pro. And perhaps that's what Sony needs to do. I don't know if they can do that financially, because I know they want to make money on the PlayStation 5 Pro. I don't know their costs on the PlayStation 5 Pro. I guess we're going to find that out at Hot Chips. We'll find that out as the RDNA 4 GPUs come out from AMD on PC, and then we'll kind of know the cost of the PlayStation 5 Pro. But right now, like I said, $700. It's a day one buy for me. I want to know what you guys think about all of this. Are you excited for the PlayStation 5 Pro now that you see that we are going to get an uptick in performance? Other outlets have actually had hands-on. CNET, I'll leave that in the description down below. They actually had hands-on with the PlayStation 5 Pro. They played it. They have a video up. And he said it was a stark difference playing it at 4K 30 on the PlayStation 5. He played Horizon, and then playing it 4K 60 on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Everything looked better. Everything ran better. It was just a huge uptick in performance. So you're getting double the frame rate in that instance on the game. How are you telling me that's not a big upgrade, getting double the frame rate of the PlayStation 5? Anyways, you guys let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Like I usually say, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys on the next one.